In a dark and terrifying room, Yijie cries on his knees as he claims he doesn't deserve this because he didn't do anything wrong. A mysterious woman suddenly shoots Yijie and throws him off a plane, but even with a hole in his forehead, Yijie opens his eyes. This all started 7 years ago. Yijie is on his way to an interview at a very prestigious company when suddenly a man runs through a busy road and gets hit by a car. Yijie checks on the guy, but he dies as he clutches onto Yijie's arm, leaving him very shaken. Later during the interview, Yijie is still going through his trauma and he can't answer anything properly, so he doesn't get the job. Having failed to secure a job, Yijie graduates with a big student debt, so he has to start getting menial jobs like delivery guy and waiter. His family can't help him because his father is dead and his mother is a janitor that already sacrificed a lot to give him a good education. Yijie never stops sending resumes to various companies, but he repeatedly fails to get a full-time job. After 7 years of working part-time jobs, Yijie finally gets an interview at the big company again. Interviewer Taeyu is impressed by the resume, and Yijie leaves the meeting with high hopes. However, he soon gets a call from a friend who informs him that all the money they invested in another friend's deal is gone because the guy disappeared. Yijie rushes to his friend's apartment and starts pounding on the door, but nobody answers. Since those were all his savings, Yijie gets furious and starts hitting the door with a fire extinguisher until he falls to his knees as he has a breakdown. Moments later, he ends up in the police station for destruction of property, so Yijie asks the cops to arrest his friend. However, they can't do anything because investing in a business that failed isn't illegal. In the evening, Yijie goes to see his girlfriend Jisoo, who comes out of a car with a guy that gives her flowers. Once the man is gone, Yijie approaches her, who immediately smells that he's been drinking. She mentions that he hasn't been able to get much work this month and gives him an envelope, but he thinks of it as charity and realizes he's been nothing but a burden. Thinking their relationship won't go anywhere, Yijie breaks up with her. Moments later, Yijie goes to his apartment, only to discover that the landlord has kicked him out and he's keeping the deposit to make up for overdue rent. All of Yijie's things have been left outside under the rain, so he has to move as much stuff as possible to protect it. Sadly, there isn't much room, and when morning comes, he's lost many of his things. After spending the night sleeping on the ground, Yijie gets a message from the company saying he failed his interview. After having another breakdown, Yijie decides he's had enough and self-deletes in the middle of the city, ignoring the call from his mother. Darkness takes over for a few seconds, and then Yijie discovers he's in a private plane. When he looks at his reflection, he freaks out because his face has changed, and at that moment, he notices the mysterious lady sitting nearby. She has his goodbye letter in her hands, but she magically burns it before taking off her shades, revealing bright red eyes. Suddenly, Yijie is transported to the terrifying room with a tall tower in the middle of a red sea and demons trying to climb up. The lady reveals she's Death, and she's brought him here to punish him because he made a mockery of her. She grabs him by the neck and throws him off the edge, so the monsters try to grab him as he falls. There are lots of creatures waiting for him in the water, but when he crashes, he wakes up in the plane with the other face again. Death is there too and explains that she'll make Yijie die 12 more times as a punishment. His soul will enter the bodies of 12 people facing imminent death, and he'll die regardless of where he ends up. However, if he manages to evade a death, he'll be allowed to keep that life. Yijie doesn't care about those deaths because he wants to end it all. But after Death disappears, the plane enters a raging storm. Unconsciously panicking, Yijie puts on the life jacket and fastens his seatbelt while the flight attendant comes to tell him that it's just some turbulence. After a few minutes of shaking, the plane stabilizes and the attendant lets Yijie alone. Still confused, Yijie starts looking around and realizes he's in the body of a very rich person. Suddenly, a glowing pebble enters his mind, informing him of the details of the person he's possessing. This guy is the CEO of the important company Yijie applied to, and he's been rich his whole life. Taeyu is his older brother, and they competed since they were kids over everything, including who would lead the company. All his hard work allowed him to win his father's approval, and eventually he was chosen to become the new CEO. Yijie is very pleased by this lifestyle and decides he wants to keep it, but at that moment, an engine blows up. The plane starts going down at great speed, and Yijie has to dodge all the sliding furniture, before going back to his seat to fasten the seatbelt. The pilot tries to control the plane to no avail, and the fire spreads, creating a hole in the side of the plane that sucks out the pilot and the flight attendant. Ye can only watch as an explosion makes the whole plane catch on fire, and he's soon burned to death. Afterward, Ye wakes up in the dark room, which is now a barren area with a creepy glowing door and a desk for Death. On this desk, a clock counts down the lives Ye has left. While Death puts a bunch of bullets in her gun, she explains a few things. The souls from those bodies are already dead, so Ye isn't stealing their lives. He's just giving the bodies a second chance. If he fails to survive in all of them, he'll go to hell, and Death decides to give him a preview. She grabs Ye and takes him behind the door, where he sees indescribable horrors. When Death takes him out, Ye has his breakdown, returning to the beginning. He doesn't understand what he did to deserve hell, so Death says he's guilty of finding her before she could find him. She also reveals that depending on his actions, if he survives in one of the 12 bodies, he may avoid going to hell. Ye decides he'll try to survive after all, and Death shoots him to send him into the second life. He finds himself falling from a plane in a new body, wearing a sports jumpsuit, but without a parachute. As he panics, he sees 3 other men jumping with him and carrying cameras. A man catches him to help him, and at that moment, the glowing pebble enters his mind. This body belongs to an adrenaline junkier who loves extreme sports and has done lots of crazy challenges, earning him 4 Guinness World Records. Today, he's doing a challenge that consists of diving without a parachute from 1,000 miles above ground to land on a safety net. The event is being transmitted on national TV, and if he pulls it off, his sponsor will give him $3 billion in cash. The memory of the sponsor shows a guy playing with a lighter. The idea of such money makes Ye want to complete the challenge, so he pushes the helper away and begins falling at great speed. The body lost the original soul, but kept the abilities, so Ye is feeling confident and even excited. When he finally reaches his destination, he misses the net and lands on the ground, instantly dying.